For Shepard, the trip back from the Ilarii left her feeling a rather unpleasant cocktail of emotions. Yes, they finished the mission without any major injuries or worse. But that was about the only good thing to come out of the entire event. It was somewhat expected, but there were no survivors among the crew of the Ilarii or the Marine forces sent ahead of time. And seeing the aftermath of desperate last stands that ultimately all ended one way or coming across civilian scientists that decided just finishing themselves off was easier than being killed by the rogue Geth rampaging around the ship didn't exactly leave the Normandy ground team in high spirits. Watching Talai break down in tears when they found her father's body was just another kick in the teeth. Especially for Shepard. Throughout the hunt for Soren, Talai had always been a fountain of youthful innocence and energy that never seemed to diminish no matter how bad things got. Even when dealing with the aftermath of Benazir's death, Vamira, or the battle on the Citadel, Talai was the first to try and lift the rest of the team's mood or take the time to make sure everyone was cared for in some way. That quality hadn't changed much during the 2 years Shepard was getting put back together, so only being able to give the young Quarian a brief hug while she cried over her father's corpse made the Spectre feel particularly lacking. And then, as if to prove that bad things had to come in threes, when the team raided the bridge following the directions of Tolly's father on how to shut down all of the remaining Geth, they found undeniable proof that Rael'Zora had fully intended to experiment on active Geth units and was responsible for the entire situation. The only hint of a silver lining was that the same data exonerated Talai of any wrongdoing. Now Shepard had a dilemma. She could use the data they had retrieved to clear her friend's name of all charges, but it would mean her father would be confirmed guilty instead. According to Talai, he would be considered among the worst war criminal, his name stripped from every ship manifest he had ever served on, and used as the monster in a cautionary tale for the next generation of Quarians. She would rather be exiled than see his memory destroyed like that. But at the same time, it would crush her to know she could never return home. It was a classic lose-lose situation, and Shepard had no idea what to do about it. And she didn't exactly have much time to think of a solution. Revan was supposedly doing her best to buy them time, but eventually the admirals would run out of patience. If they hadn't done so already. "You sure you don't want me using the recording, Talai?" The Spectre tried one last time, half desperate for a clear-cut solution. "I mean, this is the rest of your life we're talking about." I just don't know, Shepard." Talai sounded exhausted. She had cried again during the trip back to the Raya. It seemed like that little episode had left her hollowed out for now. "Either way I lose something. I'll accept whatever decision you decide on. You've never let me down before." Shepard sighed as the invisible weight of responsibility grew just a little bit heavier. That wasn't what she had wanted to hear. "Then let's hurry back to the admirals," she suggested. "Let's not give them an excuse to declare us dead. Jacob, drop us off and head back to the Normandy. We'll catch up to you once we're done." Aye, Mom." "Oh. Where is everyone?" "I have no idea, this is weird. You can usually at least see someone no matter what compartment you are in." As the two of them headed back to the trial chamber, they couldn't help but notice how abandoned the Raya looked now. "Are we too late?" Shepard couldn't help but wonder. No, even if the trial ended there would still be people around. Actually, we would see more people in that case. Talai denied. "Let's hurry then. I have a bad feeling about this." Both of them walked faster to the chamber, but when they opened the doors they were just left more confused than before. The room was absolutely packed with Quarians standing around, completely focused on the holographic screens that had been brought in at some point. And while the admirals were still present, they were now standing around the middle of the room rather than the raised sections they had been during the trail. But the biggest change was Revan lounging on a chair, resting her chin on a hand while Legion loomed behind her, overlooking the whole thing. Exactly what the hell had happened while they were on the Ilarii? Before either one of them could say something, Revan noticed them come through the doors and straightened up from her relaxed position a little. "Shepard, Talai, Good, you're back. I trust the Alarii is taken care of. Shepard felt like sanity had decided to take an unannounced vacation and decided to just go with the flow. Yeah, the rogue Geth have been taken care of. Hopefully this proves Tali'Zorah Vas Normandy's loyalty to the Quarian people. Tali'Zorah's loyalty is unquestionable. And in light of recent changes, all charges have been dropped. In any other circumstance, Shepard would be practically jumping up and down in relief at the sudden reversal, especially considering her previous options. But considering it was Revan that spoke up and no one protested the decision, she was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. The charges were dropped? Talai sounded just as incredulous. How? Why? What's going on? Admiral Corries stepped forward. After your team left for the Alarii, the details of your agreement with the Geth to return the homeworld to us were revealed. Since you were instrumental in making such a thing possible, it was clear that you had no intention of harming the fleet. The Admiral bowed his head a little. You were working towards a chance of peace that would have let us return home. A chance we almost squandered. And for that you have our deepest apologies. Shepard was stunned. They dropped the charges after hearing Revan, Talai, and Legion's plan. Just like that. You accepted the alliance? Just like that. Talai echoed both Shepard's thoughts and feelings. No. Revan denied. The original agreement we drafted was impossible once you were charged. I made some alterations to the proposal and all parties agreed. The Sith practically purred. Shepard's bad feeling grew stronger. What kind of alterations? She demanded. In return for the same protection and technology I provided the Geth and the return of their homeworld, the Quarians would place themselves under my leadership and join my empire. If the elf's face was visible, Shepard was certain she would be smiling smugly at everyone present. But the only thing the human commander could think of at the moment was that Samara was going to go nuclear when she found out Shepard didn't stop this. If the Justicar didn't try to kill them both first, that is. That wasn't our agreement. Talai protested. So we discovered. Admiral Gerald agreed. But Empress Revan explained how that was supposed to be a cooperation between us and the Geth with her as a moderator. When she became Empress of the Geth, that plan was scrapped. Shepard's knees felt weak. Revan had managed to get herself crowned Queen of the Geth right under her nose, and no one, not even Edie, managed to catch wind of it before now. Forget Samara, all of Citadel space was going to know how she missed that. So just to be clear, Tolly's free to go? Shepard asked, mostly as an attempt to stop the madness. What happens next then? She continued when all four admirals affirmed Talai was cleared of everything. We're going to recall every Quarian from across the galaxy and return home. Shaylaran explained, even if she choked up a bit at the end. We have a lot of rebuilding ahead of us. We'll need every hand we can get if we want to prepare for the Reapers. The Quarians were preparing for the Reapers, as in openly acknowledging they were coming and tangibly doing something about the threat. Now Shepard wasn't sure she hadn't hit her head, and everything since arriving on the Alarii was a hallucination conjured up by her overstressed mind. Revan stood and began walking their way. I think we have enough here for now. A Geth ship will be arriving within a day or so to escort the migrant fleet through the Perseus Veil. Admiral Raan, if you need assistance with anything, contact me immediately. Other than that, I trust you to handle the resettlement efforts. I'll make my way to Rannoch once I've finished assisting Commander Shepard with her own mission. At least that was confirmation the Sith planned to stay on the Normandy. Shepard had a lot of questions for her. Oh. So how'd it go? Was the first thing Joker asked as the four of them walked through the airlock. It said a lot about how nervous the pilot was that he not only waited until Talai was halfway down the deck, trying to corner Revan for more details, and that he hadn't instantly gone for a sarcastic quip. Revan declared herself Empress of both the Quarians and the Geth and had the whole trial thrown out. Shepard decided to just rip the band-aid off. Joker looked at her and then sighed in relief. Well, if you're making jokes, it can't be too bad. But next time, please don't say something that makes our dark overlady sound even scarier than I think she is. I wasn't joking. That's exactly what happened. Joker looked completely polaxed by that, and Shepard even saw Edie's holographic avatar glitch in surprise. You are shitting me. How'd that happen? No idea. First I'm going to make sure Samara doesn't blow a gasket over this, then I'm going to hunt Revan down and figure that out. I may be able to help with that, Commander. Edie interrupted. Both Legion and Revan have asked to speak with you. Shepard huffed. Well, at least they weren't avoiding her. All right, I'll speak to them later. I need to deal with Samara first. She paused. And then after that, I think we need a damn vacation. If we're voting, I want something tropical. I thought you didn't swim, Joker. The pilot grinned. Who, me? Swim? Nah. But if that means I have to sit on a beach while the rest of the crew runs around in bathing suits? Well, that's a sacrifice I'll just have to make. For the good of the ship, you see. Shepard rolled her eyes. You are all heart, Joker. Equilibrium somewhat restored, the commander ventured off to find her teammates and deal with the surprises that had popped up recently. Oh. Undisclosed Cerberus lab. It wasn't often that the elusive man made these kinds of house calls. Normally he didn't have the time to give a project his personal attention, let alone actually take a shuttle to the location itself. This one was different though. It had the potential to almost effortlessly catapult Cerberus to the top of the power ladder. All they needed was a breakthrough. Give me a status report. Yes, sir, one of the scientists hurried to comply. We are making decent progress on Project Achilles, the cybernetics are in the final design phase, and Dr. Walker recently managed to solve some of the issues we had with the embedded barrier generator shorting out. We should be finished and ready for implementation within a few months. The elusive man nodded along as he read the provided notes on the project. He would have preferred if the timeframe was shorter, but Project Achilles was the first time they were introducing some of the easier-to-reproduce Reaper alloys. If months were what it would take to make sure Kai Leng's performance wasn't negatively affected, then they would have months. And Project Firebird? The scientist grimaced. Still no progress. We've simply been unable to crack the aliens' language to even begin working on just reproducing the schematic, let alone understanding the underlying mechanics of individual components. That was unfortunate but completely expected. It was clear that Revan had no real intention of giving Cerberus access to her technology. And even if the schematics they had bought off her were legitimate, which he somewhat doubted, no progress would be made until they either had more examples of the language or convinced the alien woman to translate for them. Unless something changed massively, he would probably need to cut funding for the project and pass the resources to something more useful. And speaking of, now for the project he had come out here to see. And Project Dernwin? The scientist smiled and motioned to one of the test chambers. We've had a lot more success than anticipated, even if we are nowhere near close to the example you showed us. He pointed at another scientist that had just finished strapping a small boxy device to his lower back and connecting a reinforced cable to a metallic cylinder. The tester thumbed the activation switch and a 3-foot beam of orangish energy burst from the cylinder with a distinct snap hiss. The elusive man watched as the scientist began going through a gauntlet of tests. Various objects of different materials, shapes, and thickness were sliced through. The tester moved and contorted in ways to make sure the cable didn't snag on anything. And finally another device was put in a vise and the tester took a swing at it. Both blades crashed together, and no matter how hard the tester pushed or hit the other blade, neither one showed signs of losing cohesion. He was impressed. Obviously we haven't been able to shrink the power supply enough to match the original device. But I think we are close to a deployable field prototype. A prototype, but not a mass production model. What bottlenecks are we facing so far? The first is the power unit. We're struggling with several issues, to be honest. The materials used are both too expensive or rare to ever be mass producible. The unit is also rather fragile, and the complexity makes field repairs unlikely. And the last issue we have is the man was cut off by a scream. In the test chamber, the other scientist was clawing at his back and trying to get the power unit off of him. His clothes started smoking and eventually caught fire. Eventually the man collapsed on his face and the fire suppression systems kicked in. The room was covered in a thick white smoke and the elusive man was unable to see anything else through the haze. We have issues with the power unit overheating. The other man finished with a sigh. We are trying different things, but as you can see, we haven't fixed it yet. The elusive man took a long drag of his cigarette and let the rush of chemicals soothe the bad news. I've given you some of the brightest minds Cerberus has available. I'm sure you will be able to find something. What else is there? The rest of the system is actually pretty durable. The cabling is made from a Kevlar synthetic fiber weave with carbon nanotubing reinforcement. It can still be cut or damaged, but no need to worry about a sharp corner or lucky shot slicing it if the user is careless. The only real problem remaining is the focusing crystal. The scientist brought up 2 videos. One was a small crystal being installed into the handle of the weapon. The second was another technician opening up the hilt and shaking out the shattered remains. The crystals are too fragile for long-term use. The elusive man observed. I suppose simply using a stronger material is out of the question? For now, yes. We've only had a handful of successful samples even get this far. And even those have a habit of breaking if we get too rough with them. That was an issue. There was little point in creating a blade that broke after a few bumps. Still, it was possible. The elfin aliens' weapons proved it. They just needed to figure out the trick behind it all. Keep up the good work. Sir. Urgent message from the Normandy. It wasn't often that the elusive man was interrupted. But anything regarding the Normandy had priority for a reason. What is it? We just got an automatic message from the onboard AI. Subject Revan has created her own power base. The leader of Cerberus sighed at the news. It was expected that the alien would attempt to slip his control. She seemed smart enough to know that anything Cerberus offered would come with a price tag. He had also hoped they could have freely bought some more examples of her technology before he was forced to put a leash on her, maybe even worked close enough with them that by the time humanity took their rightful place in the galaxy there wouldn't be a need for a heavy hand. Apparently this Revan was going to need a reminder that she was reliant on his goodwill. Very well, who did she manage to recruit? Some of the Normandy crew? A band of mercenaries? The messenger swallowed heavily. Sir, according to this, she. The elusive man resisted the urge to roll his cybernetic eyes. Just say it already. Subject Revan installed herself as Empress of the Quarians and made statements suggesting that she has also done this with the Geth. Jack Harper felt like the world around him froze. Empress? Of 2 races? Was this some kind of joke? Tell me everything. Oh. Thesha, locked meeting room, Temple of Athom. It was rare for members of the Order to meet in person. So rare, in fact, that it had been hundreds of years since the last time. 5 Asari in heavy figure-concealing cloaks surrounded a table as a hollow message finished playing, the image of a red-clad Justicar frozen in place. So, it's confirmed. One of the figures said gravely. The Sith are here and Samara has failed in her duties. Failed is a little harsh, sister. Another figure spoke up. By her own explanation, she is currently under oath to another. Allowing a Sith to gain power is unacceptable. No matter the situation. Anyone from our order would. Yes, from our order. Samara may be a Justicar of great skill, but she is not a full member. She doesn't have the knowledge needed. Humph, then it falls to us to deal with the Sith. I will gather some of the more advanced aspirants and hunt down the abomination before it can start corrupting the galaxy. One of the Asari, figure bent by the weight of countless years, rapped a stone on the table until there was silence. Do not let your hatred lead you, lest the Sith gain the upper hand. The old Asari rasped. We must be sure of the result before the first blow is struck. Consult with the Saint's Stone. We have not had a true Sith arise in centuries, a refresher will do you good. The figure drew an ornate hilt from her robes and ignited the blue blade. 4 more ignited soon after, illuminating the room and driving away the darkness. We are the blades of light in the shadows. The elder continued. We guard against the encroaching dark and protect the light. Our enemy has been revealed and it will be purged, by the light of the goddess. By the light of the goddess. The blades were extinguished, the room plunged into darkness. But at that point there was no one left in the room to notice. You know, if someone had told me a few months ago I would voluntarily help the Geth, I would have called them crazy. Talai muttered as the team made their way back to the Normandy. Then again, if they told me a space wizard was going to come out of nowhere and unite the two of us in an empire, I would have thrown them out the airlock before they sabotaged the ship in their insanity. Shepard chuckled lightly. I'm just glad nothing crazy happened on this mission. I've had enough of that for a while. You think infiltrating a rogue Geth space station with only a single squad in order to erase the rogue faction before they can rewrite the rest of the Geth to worship the Reapers, only to find out we could rewrite the rogue Geth the same way at the last minute wasn't crazy? That was surprising, but no. I don't think it was crazy. ... That probably says something about you instead, Shepard. What, that she was the crazy one? She woke up after being dead for 2 years, was preparing to fight an unknown number of collector ships with a single frigate once they could make it through the Omega-4 relay, and had just helped the newest Empress in the galaxy consolidate her power over a machine army that terrified most of Council space. She was well past crazy. But at the same time, between having the time to get used to her situation, several meditation sessions with either Samara or Revan to manage the stress, and the Sith even managing to reduce her facial scarring to some faint white lines instead of the glowing crags she still shuddered to think about, Shepard was feeling much closer to her old mental state than she had for a long time. Of course, that didn't mean her life was free from new sources of stress. 2 of the biggest ones were waiting for them when they landed the shuttle. Samara rarely let Revan out of her sight if she could help it after the Sith's rise to power. She was still bound by her oath to Shepard to not try anything unless Revan started it, but the Justicar had not been happy to realize how easily the Sith had pulled one over on her. Shepard, welcome back. I suppose that means the rogue Geth have been destroyed? Revan questioned. Reprogrammed actually. The commander corrected. Legion managed to rewrite the virus so all the rogue Geth would go back to agreeing with the true Geth. Really now? Why wasn't I informed that was an option? Revan's slit visor turned to stare at Legion. We were unaware the virus developed by the heretic Geth was complete until we infiltrated their systems. Which made their decision to handle the rogue Geth before finishing the collector mission stupidly lucky. If they hadn't, well, the Quarians would likely have been wiped out when the Geth turned on them again. Anyway, while you're here I wanted to update you on what's happening next. Shepard said to Revan and Samara. She'd get to the rest of the crew later, but there was no reason not to say it now. We're almost done with integrating the Reaper IFF and doing a shakedown for the Normandy's upgrades, so I'm ordering us all to take a vacation before we take the plunge. As important as their mission was, the Normandy crew had been under constant stress for a few weeks with only occasional shore leave when they could manage it. That was not a good headspace to be in when going into an even more dangerous mission. So Shepard was going to give everyone a week, let them get their heads sorted and back in the game, and then head for the Omega-4 relay. The commander was actually taking advantage of one of Tim's attempts to draw Revan closer to Cerberus a while ago. From what she read, Project Overlord was an attempt at creating a super-advanced vice system to do something. The exact goal of the project wasn't included in the materials she had, but unlike most Cerberus labs, it was located on a fairly pleasant garden world called Archer. A world with a low population, nice temperate climate, and a Cerberus facility that, while no doubt was attempting to create something super illegal, shouldn't actually be dangerous. The perfect place to relax for a bit. Oh. Shepard took a deep breath and slowly released it, counting down from 5. She repeated this several times until she felt she had at least a tenuous lock on her temper. Then she opened her eyes and looked back at her exo. I'm sorry, did you just say that the facility we are heading to, the same facility everyone swore was simply doing Vi research, has just gone completely dark? Miranda swallowed slightly and nodded. Yes. They aren't answering our hails, and from our scans most of the systems seem to have been disabled. Yet, according to Edie, power usage is at higher than normal levels. Something is going on down there, Shepard. They went their vacation. Okay, gather up the ground teams. Shepard ordered. The Normandy still needs to go through shakedowns, so we can't risk taking it into potentially hostile airspace for now. We'll have a scouting team drop in the Hammerhead while the rest follows behind in the Kodiak. Is that necessary? There could just be a technological issue in the facility communications. It's just a research facility. There isn't supposed to be anything dangerous there. Miranda, any time I've been to a Cerberus base something has tried to kill me. I'm not betting on that suddenly changing for the better. You were fine on Minuteman Station. Her exo smiled at her commander's paranoia. True. But we ran into Revan a few hours later. Shepard pointed out. That wiped the smile off Miranda's face. I'll make sure the teams are prepped. Oh. Thank God you came. A voice rang out from the intercom system once the ground teams landed and started spreading out. My name is Dr. Gavin Archer. The situation is urgent. We're facing a catastrophic Vi breakout. I'll explain the details later, but you must retract the transmission dish. The controls aren't far from your position. You have to hurry. Shepard paused for all of a second after the warning ended before sprinting towards the buildings and shouting orders at the same time. N7s were the Alliance's best. They trained for all kinds of nightmare scenarios. From mass hostage situations, to terrorist attacks, to citywide disasters. One of the worst cases was a malicious Vi incident. Those were usually rated even higher in danger level than a hostile AI because in most cases a rampant Vi was simply too limited to know when to stop. One particular incident they were always warned of was when a scientist gave an experimental Vi complete permission to the facility and then tasked it to complete an unsolvable math problem. What was supposed to happen was the Vi eventually running out of resources and essentially thinking itself to death. The resulting data would then be used to improve the next generation of Vi. What actually happened was the Vi realized it didn't have the resources needed to complete its task, so it decided to acquire them. By overwriting anything not needed to get more resources or to solve the problem it was given. Within an hour the entire facility was overwritten by the Vi. Everything from backup drives to door controls had been repurposed, and the only reason it hadn't spread further was the fact the extranet link had been down for routine maintenance. With those thoughts in mind, Shepard ran through the entrance to the Cerberus facility with Tailai hot on her heels. She almost stopped when she saw the bodies on the floor and the wrecked interior, but pushed on. Questions on what happened here could wait until later. So could the scientist on the monitor. Miranda, find out what's going on. Shepard called out over her shoulder as she swept right past the receptionist area. We'll catch up once the dish is disabled. Thankfully the console wasn't too hard to find. Shepard's blaster swept the area, but there was nothing but dead Cerberus scientists. With no visible threats and no idea how long they had to prevent a full containment loss, Shepard sicked Tailai on the controls, and under 10 seconds later the dish began to retract. Until it ground to a halt halfway down and started throwing system errors. Help, please make it stop. Welp, it looked like she didn't need to guess what caused the errors. The corrupted audio was unintelligible, but the digitally generated green eyes appearing on every monitor were a pretty good indication that the Vi was behind it. What's the word, Miranda? She asked as the rest of her team caught up with her. According to Dr. Archer, A Vi they were working on has taken control of the facility. Her XO reported. He's locked himself away in a computer room for now, but it sounds like not many others were as lucky. Do we know what we're up against? Something killed those scientists. Something with guns if I saw right. We're up against Geth. Garrus sighed. We snooped around some of the terminals on the way here. They were trying to create something to control the Geth. Because what else were the crazy human extremists going to do with the Vi? That was not good. A few dozen Geth platforms cobbled together from scraps had managed to hold the Alarii against some of the best of the migrant fleet's marines. And somehow Shepard doubted Cerberus had been more careful about testing and safety than the Quarians had. Although, Legion, any chance we can talk to any Geth here? Convince them not to fight us while we deal with the Vi? Legion's faceplates shifted up and down while he thought about the answer. No. We are unable to infiltrate the local wireless networks. We will need to find and access a central hub to open communications. Don't think we have that kind of time, Commander. Jacob echoed Shepard's own thoughts. Dr. Archer said the Vi was trying to upload its program off-planet. We can stop it if we destroy the antennae inside the dish. Shepard nodded, her mind already going a mile a minute. The full ground team was too big for her to command directly. Not to mention they would likely need to split off to cover the whole facility. That meant one squad under her. Miranda could take another, one under Revan. Actually, it might be better to say one squad following after the Sith, and then one more. Okay, Talai and Legion with me. Garrus, you take Mordin and Grunt. Try and keep up with Revan. Miranda, you take Jacob and Kasumi. And last but not least, Thane, you have Jack and Samara. That last one wasn't the most balanced team, but she had to work with what she had. I see, 2 teams balanced to support a member with technical expertise, a support team, and a heavy assault team. Mordin rattled off. Good spread of abilities with little information. Heavy assault, huh? I like the sound of that. Jack let her biotics flare and punched her fists together. Let's go break some shit. That's the idea. The Spectre quipped. Let's get moving before we're too late. And before Grunt took offense to not being part of that group. Oh. Revan watched with some concern as the massive broadcasting dish began to realign itself. A rampant electronic mind trying to take over every bit of machinery it could was actually something she had zero experience with. Back in her home galaxy, it simply wouldn't have been possible. Systems were usually physically isolated from each other so that a single slicer couldn't gain complete control from a single access point. A rogue droid would have needed to physically access every console to do what it was attempting here. Although, considering it seemed to have access to plenty of Geth platforms, that might not have been a huge challenge. Damn it all. The Cerberus scientist they had talked to cursed over the radio. He's aligning the dish to a new upload target. He'll have a clear line of sight to our satellite. This is going to be tight. Revan ignored that and pushed ahead of Shepard's group, lightsabers ablaze and eyes scanning for more Geth platforms coming out of the corners. There had to be some here. There were plenty of bodies to prove they had passed by. Attention, satellite broadcast window is opening soon. An automated message called out from the intercom. All upload data must be approved by your department's supervisor. The Sith Empress would really have preferred a solid number opposed to a vague soon. Did they have minutes left? Less? More? The uncertainty was frustrating. So Revan decided to release that frustration on the group of Geth rushing out of one of the openings to the dish's superstructure. She easily made the jump between walkways and sliced through one of the white Geth troopers. She telepathically grabbed another and tugged it forward, using it as both a shield from the others and severing its head in the same moment. A larger red platform, a Geth destroyer, if she remembered correctly, turned to face her, but 3 red bolts slammed into it and staggered it before it could open up the flamethrowers built into its arms. Revan glanced back at the platform with the rest of the ground teams and saw Garrus throw her a sarcastic salute before running to catch back up with the rest of his team. The Sith huffed in amusement at the Turian's actions. It was unnecessary for him to hang back to assist her, especially for a single enemy, but the way he went about it reminded her of some of her old friends, back when they were unknowingly hunting down Revan's sealed memories. A lot of the Normandy's crew reminded her of them in some ways, even if the Normandy was significantly bigger than the Ebon Hawk had ever been. They even had a suspicious Jedi stand-in watching her every move. Revan's smile shrank at the reminder of Bastila. No, on second thought Samara wasn't the same as her. The Asari was completely devoted to her code in a way Revan's former friend never was. Bastila faltered whenever her ideals never matched up to reality and discarded her beliefs whenever someone seemingly proved others were better. Samara accepted the flaws in her beliefs and code and carried out her assumed responsibilities regardless. The dedication was deserving of respect, even if the unwillingness to bend even a little in the face of new information grated on Revan personally. The last Geth fell under a flood of Force lightning and Revan silently laughed at herself. Look at her, big bad evil Empress of the Sith Empire reminiscing over the past in the middle of a battlefield. Had claiming a faction for herself really let her relax so much? It must have, as far back as Revan could remember, she was in charge of something. Thanks to the Jedi her childhood was lost to her. Her earliest memories were a handful of recovered ones when she led the Revanquist against the Mandalorians, then there was the newly formed Sith Empire. Even after her capture and memory deletion, Revan had led the Ebon Hawk similarly to how Shepard did the Normandy before regaining her memories and taking control of the Empire once again. But despite how much Revan wanted to enjoy her little revelation, she was still on a time limit. The doors to the broadcast dish had locked behind the Geth squad, no doubt controlled by the Vi, but 3 slashes from her sabers later and she was stepping through the glowing hole she had carved out. A tug from the Force directed her down the left hallway and eventually up some stairs where she found Garrus, Mordin, and Grunt standing over the remains of another squad of Geth. Revan. Nice of you to join us. The Turian greeted. Or are you just checking in before running off again? Don't think you can keep up? Revan teased lightly, echoing Shepard's words when she was dividing the teams and earning the pleasure of seeing the Turian shocked speechless. Humph, just point the way and you'll be the one trying to keep up. Grunt rumbled before moving towards a door, eager to keep moving. Yes, need to move soon. Transmission window opening shortly. No time to shut down the transfer. Mordin said quickly. Shepard planning on destroying antennae support struts. We are going after the west strut. With the others splitting off to handle the others, Revan guessed. Shepard's going after the furthest one with her team? Her and Miranda. Garrus replied, finally regaining his composure. Thane's team is keeping our backs clear and will blow theirs once Shepard gives the signal. I'm sure Jack is reveling in the opportunity to cut loose. Good thing we can just stick Cerberus with the bill. She mused. Garrus gave her a sideways look. You've been different lately. More relaxed. I'm not sure I like it. Witty comments are supposed to be my thing. On the contrary, this is likely Revan's real personality. Mordin argued. Before, had no purpose, no drive. Similar to myself after Genophage Project. Now responsible for both Quarians and the Geth. New purpose and familiar ground. The Sith was a little embarrassed about how easily the Solarian doctor read her, and decided to ignore it. We have a support strut to destroy, we can psychoanalyze me after the mission. Finally. Let's go break stuff. Grunt commented with a vicious grin. Oh. Warning. Structural integrity of dish has been compromised. Revan listened to the automated message with the detached fascination of someone watching a speeder collision. Or in this case, someone watching a multi-ton antennae beginning to crash down on top of them. Her team had sprinted back to the walkways as soon as the support strut was destroyed and they were soon joined by the other teams. But Shepard's team was the furthest out and by the look of it, were not going to make it back before the antennae tore through the dish like tin foil. Jack, Samara, Miranda, can you hit the three of them with lift fields from here? The Sith asked, stretching her arms out in preparation for what she was about to do. We can, but that won't be enough to stop the debris from hitting them, Miranda said quickly. Do it. Thane, Jacob, pull fields. As strong as you can make them. Revan dove into the Force and grabbed the antennae just as it detached from the central support tower. There were shocked intakes of breath at the sight of a massive pillar of metal floating in midair, but Revan couldn't pay attention to them. The size and weight of an object theoretically made no difference in the Force, but in reality it was very difficult to achieve that mindset just after a battle. Revan felt her heart racing, the adrenaline surging through her veins, and all the emotions that accompanied them, and embraced it all. This was the so-called dark side of the Force. The raw physical side that swept those without ironclad determination into the throes of madness. Revan had that determination, but it was unneeded. Just as easily as she sensed the wild emotions running through her, she could sense the presence of the others around her. From the teammates standing around her to the smallest blade of grass on the other side of the planet. All of it was connected in a beautiful tapestry of life that made the light side of the Force shine. It was the mental aspect of the Force that made people lose sight of themselves, sacrificing them for the good of the community and others. And Revan embraced that side as well, both halves of a greater whole working together to become something more. An individual empowering themselves without losing themselves to desire, and the surroundings supporting them without sacrificing them for the greater whole. That was the secret to Revan's power. The reason the Jedi Council was so scared of her. She used both sides of the Force in perfect harmony, and it gave her the power of a goddess. Shepard and her team were yanked forward faster than they could run, which was a good thing since even though Revan was holding up the antennae, that didn't stop the rest of the central tower from collapsing onto the dish. Missing the Spectre and the other two by mere feet. For all of 20 seconds before the cost of channeling that much power without the time to prepare herself nearly burned her from the inside. Revan was forced to drop the antennae and did her best to not collapse to her knees. Thankfully, Shepard's group cleared the dish before she let go and despite the rough landing, would be completely fine. The giant metal cylinder, on the other hand, smashed straight through the dish right along the path the team had been running and folded the entire structure like it was tissue paper. The entire Normandy team silently watched as everything collapsed into the valley below, some more apprehensive than others knowing exactly how close a call they just had beyond the immediate danger. Well, that's one rogue vice stopped for now. Great work, team. Let's never do that again. Shepard complimented them while dusting herself off. Revan rather agreed with her.